Welcome to video 1 in my Smiling Dog Math series that's designed to help you help little kids understand math. When it comes to helping little kids learn math, don't start them off with simple counting. Please don't. Hi, I'm Dr. Marty Epstein. I have a PhD in math education where I focused on learning everything I could about how little kids first learn math and what can go wrong. That odd request to not start little kids learning math with simple counting is actually really important to helping a child learn math. And that's what this video is all about. Why we shouldn't start a child learning math with simple counting, where we should start instead, and why it matters a lot. Many people start teaching their children math by starting with simple counting. And by simple counting, I simply mean assigning a number to an object in order, like this. 1, 2, 3. It turns out that simple counting is not the best place to start a child learning math. Well, why might that be? Let's think about that issue. Let's think about simple counting from a child's perspective. And keep in mind, that child doesn't yet know what numbers mean and how we use them, and they're trying to figure that out from the input they get from the world around them. Let's count together. 1, 2, 3. It turns out that doing this early and a lot may result in a child thinking that numbers are simply the names we give individual things when we count. Or maybe because we always use these numbers in the same order, maybe numbers tell us something about order, rank, or placement. Why might that be a problem? In fact, a pretty big problem. To answer that, let's think about the math that's coming soon, in fact, right around the corner. Addition is right around the corner. So with that view of numbers, that they are the name we give something when we count it, what might kids think addition means? Something as simple as 1 plus 2 equals 3. Maybe something like this. A first place medal plus a second place medal equals a third place medal. Does it? Can I add a first place medal and a second place medal together and get a third place medal? Nope, that doesn't work. That just doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense because a name or ranking is not the view of numbers that mathematics is based on. So with that view, a child can't understand basic addition like what 1 plus 2 equals 3 means. So we want to avoid this, and to avoid it, don't start with simple counting. Okay, so what do we do instead? As we think about what to do instead, it helps to keep in mind that our goal is to fill a child's math foundation with the view of numbers that mathematics is based on. Well, what is that? Mathematics is based on the idea of groups or collections of things. So we want kids to see this as a group and to understand that, well, a group of things is a thing. And we want kids to know that we use numbers to quantify groups, or, as I often say, to tell us how many of something are in a group. That view of 3, that it tells us the size of a group or collection, and the view of 3, that it's the name of an object that's counted third, like 1, 2, 3, is a really big difference in what, in this case, 3 means. And it's only the group size view of numbers that lets us understand addition, like what 1 plus 2 equals 3 means. Here's an example. A group with 1 block in it plus a group with 2 blocks in it equals a group with 3 blocks in it. Groups, groups, groups. This foundation matters. Groups are foundational to addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. They're foundational to math. Other foundations, such as viewing numbers exclusively as rankings or the names we give an object when we count, can cause big problems. Because, for example, if a child counts this group of blocks 1, 2, 3, and thinks 3 is the name of that last item, not the group's size, and that's their exclusive view of numbers, that child won't be able to understand mathematics because that's simply not the view of numbers that mathematics is based on. So with that mismatch for that child, math will be a meaningless, frustrating exercise in rote memorization. Now, can they memorize 1 + 2 = 3 or 2 × 2 = 4? Sure they can. And is rote memorization on its own just a terrible thing? Well, no, not at all, because we do want great familiarity with certain common math facts like 1 + 2 = 3. But we also want children to totally understand what 1 + 2 = 3 means. So to avoid that ending, don't get started down that road to begin with. So don't start with simple counting. It puts the child at risk of creating a math foundation and an understanding of numbers that is simply incompatible with the math to come. Instead, start with the idea of groups, and that groups are collections or sets of things, and that numbers tell us how many of something are in a group. Wait, isn't that a contradiction? To start with groups and that numbers quantify groups, but don't count to do that? Well, it's not a contradiction if we use something called subitizing. So what's subitizing? That's a very weird word, and I hadn't even heard of it until I started studying how little kids learn math. Before explaining subitizing, first here's a question. Without counting, how many blocks are in each of the groups below? I bet you knew. If you did, you were subitizing. Subitizing involves seeing and quantifying small groups without counting. It's based on an innate ability that people are born with, and it's critical to early math. Unfortunately, it's almost universally overlooked, and if not overlooked, it's often misunderstood and misapplied. So, if we want to start with groups and that numbers quantify groups, but we don't want to count to do that, subitizing is the answer we're looking for. So we should start a child learning math with subitizing, not with simple counting. Subitizing and starting with subitizing, not simple counting, were totally new ideas when I first encountered them. They just didn't fit with my implicit assumptions about how little kids first learn math. And I'm guessing I'm not alone. I remember having to chew on these ideas a while before having that, aha, that makes so much sense moment. So this seems like a pretty good place to stop and summarize and to give these ideas a chance to settle in just a bit. So here's a quick summary of the ideas we've covered in video 1. Math is based on the idea of groups or collections of things and using numbers to quantify those groups or collections. That's the foundational view of numbers we want to build. Subitizing helps us do that, so start there. Simple counting doesn't help us do that, so avoid that at first. The next video, video 2, is all about subitizing and helping your child subitize. That's also the focus of my book, Very Early Math Set 1, which is available through the links on my Smiling Dog Math website as well as through Amazon. A few final notes. I am not anti-counting in any way. Counting is very, very, very important, and it's challenging to learn. But for all the reasons just discussed, we simply don't want to start with simple counting. Also, I fully recognize that numbers are used in early mathematics curriculum to designate order, rank, or placement, and a child will need to learn and understand that. However, it's critical to not let that view of numbers dominate, preempt, or confuse, because if a child has only that view of numbers, they won't be able to understand mathematics. That view of numbers is simply not the view of numbers mathematics is based on. Thank you so much for joining me for Smiling Dog Math Video 1. Please share, like, and subscribe so lots of little kids can build a strong math foundation. Bye for now.